Hi, I'm Donna Fields, and I'm doing a video here with Luisa Calatayud. This is for Grado de Traducción, and we're just going to be talking a little bit about what it is to be a translator, and hopefully we'll get a lot of information from Luisa. Luisa, hi.
Hi.
So I have some questions for you. You tell me what you think that other translators, future translators, might be interested in knowing. The first thing we need to know is your past. Where did you learn English?
I studied English at school, I went to a Spanish school until I was 14. And then I spent a year abroad in a boarding school in Bath in the UK. And then I went to the American School of Valencia, which teaches most of the subjects in English. That's how I actually learned it. And then I went to university to do translation and interpreting, the bachelor's degree.
Okay, and how important do you think it is to know English and have a good handle on English nowadays?
Oh, you mean in a normal life? Or?
In normal life and as a translator.
I think in normal life it's important, especially in the business field, because more and more people use English as a way of doing businesses. In fact, English is the language of business. Also, in our field, it's basic. I mean, if you don't speak the language you are translating from, you cannot translate. So if you don't speak English, you cannot be an English translator.
Okay, so a lot of people who are going to becoming translators say, well, English is not so important because I'm not going to be translating into English. So what would you say to them?
Hello, but will they be translated from English?
That's the question. How important is it for them to be able to say, I can translate from English? Will they be able to find work if they can't translate from English? In other words, are there other languages?
The language you get the most work from is English. I mean, I work with translators from other languages who only do like French, German, Italian, Russian, and they have work. Yes, they do. But it's true that for us, or in my field, English is the main language for translators.
Okay, so you were very fortunate in that you went to a boarding school and then you went to a bilingual school. If there are some translators who are watching this video who don't have this opportunity, what advice would you give them on how to improve their English?
The best way to learn a language is going into the country. That's definite. If they are young people, which I assume most of them will be, the best thing would be for them to try to work in that country for a certain amount of time in order to really, really get into the language, get into the culture. This is the best way to actually understand the way it works. If they cannot do it, they will have to watch loads of TV, read a lot in English, and try to get all the information of the language they can. Go to classes and all that. But the best thing is definitely going abroad.
Okay, because we do have a lot of people who are switching over careers, they have families, and so it might not be the easiest option for them.
Yeah, well, in that case, they need to read a lot and take lessons and watch lots of TV.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how you're working now as a translator. Where did you begin? Where did you work the most, and where do you work now?
I've always worked as a freelance translator. All right. I did like a small internship in an agency, in a translation agency, but that was a very short period of time. After that, I started being freelance, which was difficult because it's true that becoming a freelance translator, it's difficult because you need to be very patient. All right. You need to get clients to know you, and that's not that easy. But if you're patient, you eventually get there.
So you're saying being patient with yourself, with the process.
Yeah, being patient with the fact that you send CVs to many agencies and you don't get a reply. And you must think, okay, it's all right. I know it's difficult, but you get there. I mean, I get all my benefits. I make them from translation, right? So yes, you can actually get there. You just need to be patient and to move a lot. Like visit many agencies, try to get there, get them to know you. And being very present everywhere.
Okay, and do you work with other people or do you always work alone?
I work with other people. I work as a freelance translator, but I'm also a freelance project manager. which means that if a company needs to translate any document whatsoever into different languages, either they go to a translator of each language or they go to an agency. And I do that kind of work too. So they come to me as a freelance project manager and they tell me, Luisa, we need to translate this document, this agreement, this website, this whatever, into English, English, French, Italian, Russian, and German. So I get in touch with all the translators and I organize that work for them. This is especially for people who like translating, but they also need to do other things. Like they have a bit of this thing inside that makes you keep on wanting to move on, right? Not just I want to be in front of the computer and all I want to do is translate. Mm-hmm. I send the work, I get paid. No, that's one type of translator. I'm the other type, the type who wants to translate, but also wants to keep on moving and being more active.
Okay, when you say more active, what kind of projects are we talking about?
More active as in being in contact with people, like talking to clients, solving the problems and all that, and not just getting the text, doing the translation and talking to the project manager who has sent you the translator.
Okay, so this brings me to a question I'm always interested in. What is the difference between translating and interpreting? Have you ever done interpretation?
Yeah, they're completely different things. I mean, translating is anything that's written and interpreting is spoken, right? So people many times say, oh, we need a simultaneous translator. It's like, no, it's not a simultaneous translator, it's a simultaneous interpreter. The one that you get into the booth, right, with the headsets, the microphone, and you say whatever the speaker is saying in one language, you say it in your mother tongue, right? So that's the difference. One thing is translating, another thing is interpreting. And the skills it requires are completely different too. Because for the translation, you need to really be specific, you really need to search, to find the right word, and it has to be perfect, all right? When you interpret, what you need to be is fast. You need to have a fast mind that gets everything and you sort it out. If you say something that is wrong or not the perfect word, it's not that important because the words are gonna go by. So what you really need to do is give the message to the people so that they understand what is being talked about.
And have you ever done interpretation?
I have done interpretation.
And did you like it?
I like it, but I don't do it that often. I do, to be honest, I do a bit of everything. I do, part of my job is translating, part of my job is managing projects, and I do some interpreting, especially sworn interpretations. Like when you need an official interpreter in court or in a wedding, when two people from different countries get married and they need someone who has the official degree. I have the degree the title from the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which authorizes me to make official translations.
Okay, so then there are two other questions that are very important for future translators about specialization. How important is it to be specialized, and what is your specialization?
It's very important. I mean, to me, it's mandatory. In my case, I'm specialized in the legal and financial field. And I do also some tourism. I don't do, for instance, computers, or very rarely do I do anything that's technical. Right? Why is it important? Because you really need to know what the field is about. So the thing is that as an agency or as a freelance project manager, I can see that. I can see that if I need a translator for medical text, the first thing that I'm going to see is that translator is specialized in that field. If I get a CV from somebody who's specialized in legal, medical, technical, scientific, it's going to go like, okay, something's not going well here, because this person seems to know a lot of everything, or this person will probably know a bit of everything.
Okay, and so, sorry to interrupt you, but there's a question. If you're saying someone may not have a lot of experience in one field, then they may not be able to do the translation as fast as someone who is specialized. So how important is speed in the work? It
depends on the deadline. Nowadays, clients want things more and more fast, all right? But it is true that we can kind of teach them that translation is a process and it's not something done just like that. That we need time, we need to research. So when you start working on this, you face clients who say, I want it now. And it's like, oh, I need to do it now. So you're like, oh yeah, I have to do it very fast, very well. As time goes by, you realize that that's not a good idea. That you have to tell the client, listen, if you want it done, I don't know, like by tomorrow, it's not going to be a good text because this needs time and you have to explain the process of translation. The client, the process of translation, all right? So that they understand that not just by having been 1 month in the UK, you can be a translator. That it needs, you need to have your experience, your time, and many times the text needs to be proofread. So you teach them, and you teach them usually by the price. If you want it for tomorrow, this is going to be, I will need to have a colleague working with me, and the price is going to be like 30% more expensive. If you want the normal rate, it will have to be done on Thursday, for instance. And many times clients say, okay, on Thursday. So what you need to do is be very specific with the client so that they know how it works. And for me, the best thing is being honest.
Okay, so you mentioned proofreaders. Are you the translator and the proofreader, or can there be two people involved?
There should be two people involved. Ideally, all translations would have a proofreader, all right? I work for an American translators agency, and sometimes they send me one sentence to proofread, one sentence, and it's like, oh my God. So that's like the top agency, like the agency who really works the way we would all want agencies to work.
The ideal way, yeah.
That's the ideal translators agency. Then it comes on the rate. So we are always honest with the client and just tell the client, listen, this text needs to be proofread. And they say, why? Is it because the translator is bad? And you say, no. And then I always give the same explanation. My explanation is that if Garcia Marquez, and so that they see that the quality is going to be better if the text is proofread. And then you tell them that it has a surcharge of 30% or 40% or whatever the surcharge is. And then the client, they sometimes say, okay, I don't want it proofread, we will do it in-house. Which is sometimes true. Because in fact, sometimes it's better if they proofread it in-house because they know the technical vocabulary better than us because it's what they are working on every day. Sometimes it's not true and all they want to do is not pay that 30%, but they know that there can be a lack of quality there, which is usually tiny, but it's there. So if they complain to you afterwards, you say, well, I told you that this was a process and you decided to do the proofreading in-house. Right. Or sometimes they say, listen, I don't need that much of a quality. I don't need that proofreading. All right. But it's important to be honest with the client.
And to be very clear.
Yeah, of course, so that they know how things are. What I do in these cases is I have a translator's purchase order, and there I write everything down. The client signs it, and that way if there's any problem, you have the document signed where you say everything that the client needs to know, so that if they complain to you, you are safe.
Okay, so this is important. It's a little detailed, but it's very important. You say you have a bill that you put all the details of the agreements on. Can you explain that just a little bit more?
Yeah, with just a purchase order where you write the code of the project, who the client is, what are the documents, what are you doing, what are you translating, and then you have written down like terms and conditions, like the client will pay before the translation is handed in or in the 30 days since the date of the invoice or whatever your payment conditions are. This translation will not have a proofreading part, which can be like which can affect the quality, or you just say that it will not have the proofreading part as agreed with the client. What you write is the terms and conditions so that you don't have any problems afterwards.
So this brings us to one subject that's very important today, the quality of work. What do you tell people, or what do you think about using computer translated projects?
I don't use them, all right? Can you do a translation using Google Translator? Well, you can do it. You can take the test, put it into Google Translator, take the result, and proofread it, and edit it so that it looks all right in Spanish, right? Because we're always talking that we are translated from English into Spanish, since in my case it's my mother tongue. You must always translate into your mother tongue, all right? We can talk about that later on if you want. And what happens when you do that? What you think is going to be faster usually means more time, because you need to proofread so many things, you need to change so many words and so many sentences that in the end you end up taking more time than if you directly translate it from scratch, right? This also happens with proofreading bad translations. It can be a Google Translator or it can be a translator. So usually what we don't like is to proofread translations from people that we don't know what their work quality is.
Okay, so there are two things here, just to be clear.
For the proofreading.
You might be asked, right, you might be asked to translate something from one language to another, or you might be asked to do a revision, which is already in your native tongue, but you need to reread it and make sure that it's appropriate, right?
That it's appropriate, yes.
Okay, so which one do you object to? Or which one is more difficult?
Well, definitely working with Google Translator or any translator that it's like automatic translator. As I told you, I don't use them because it takes more time than doing it from scratch, and also many times the technical words are not correct. You know, it's like the joke where they say learn English in 2 days. And somebody knocks at the door and the person inside says, if, between, which in Spanish would be sí, entre. But it makes no sense. You see the point?
Right, yes.
So it's a bit like that, like that's the kind of translators that Google is going to do. So it's going to take you so long that you just directly should get it from scratch.
Okay, have you ever worked with clients that were difficult, that didn't agree with the translation that you did, even though you know that you did it well? What was your experience?
Okay, if a client complains, the first thing I do is ask him what is the problems that he finds in the translation, all right? So he usually say, well, this word, and this sentence, this I don't like. You check it, you make sure it's all right, and if it's all right, you explain to the client why is it all right. If it's wrong, you apologize and you fix it, okay? If they tell you it's in general, the quality of the text, well, then you go to a colleague and you say, can you please take a look at this and tell me if my client is right or not. And two things can happen. Your colleague can tell you, yes, your client is right. Well, you apologize and you fix it. If you are right and your client is not, that's where you have to be very careful and you have to explain to the client why is it right. Okay, so now you need to be a little bit like negotiate with the client.
But you need to use a lot of diplomacy.
Yeah, of course.
Because what you want is to continue the relationship, even though they've been a little bit difficult, yes? Okay, and the other thing you're bringing up is having support system. How important is it to have a support system with other translators?
That's basic. For me, it's basic. It's basic whenever you have a problem with a client, with a translation, or with whatever. So you really need to be well entoured with people you can trust, either by doing that with them free because they're your colleagues and you help them with other things, or paying them. It would depend on the situation, all right? For instance, there was a time where I had an ethical dilemma where the client complained about a project. This was a translation from Spanish into English. So what I did was talk to a colleague of mine who is an American translator and tell her, can you please check? And she told me that this translation is not good. So I went to the client and I said, you're right, this translation is not good, but I've got this solution for you. The solution that I had was I had to hand in on a Friday. So I told him, if you give me until Monday, I've got somebody who's going to fix it. Okay? And this colleague told me, I will fix it for you. What happened there? Do I pay the translator? Do I not pay the translator? Because the translator has done her job, but it wasn't a good job. So what I agreed with this translator in this case was that I would take a percentage off so that I could pay the proofreader, the person who was fixing the mistake, all right? So I lost part of my money. This translator got to be paid less, and the colleague fixed it. So everyone was happy. The translator got paid less. I got paid less, but at least the project was okay.
You found a solution,
We
and
found a
everybody was
solution to
happy
the
in the
project,
end.
and everyone was happy.
So the
That's
important thing is to find a solution that everybody's happy with, yes?
Yeah, and like in this case, the translator at the beginning, she told me that I had to pay the full rate. And that's what you get the dilemma. It's like, okay, what do I do here? So the good thing is that I told this translator who had been the proofreader, who is someone renowned in our field. And then she said, okay, if she did it, then she's right. Then you're paying me less.
Okay, there's another question, though, about ethical dilemmas. Have you ever been asked to translate something or revise something that you didn't, on a subject you didn't really believe in, or that you were really obviously against? For instance, I'll give you an example. I'm a vegetarian. It would be very difficult for me to work on a translation about the meat market.
Well, I haven't really been in that situation, but I guess it depends on how much work you have, and if it's, I don't know, if it's a document about let's say something that's really, really bad, like, I don't know, terrorism or killing people or something like that, I would definitely say no, something like that. Things which might be a dilemma but are not that, like if I were vegetarian and I had to translate about meat, it's not something that it's that bad. In my case, I think I would probably do it, unless I had other projects which were better for me, which I liked better doing because I wouldn't feel that uncomfortable. It's probably similar to the fact that you translate a text that you don't like, that you find extremely boring. Well, if I have something that's nicer, I'm going to go for the nicer one. But if I don't, well, I'll go for this one.
Okay, but sometimes it's simply an economic decision.
So if it's a dilemma, but something that's really, really bad for you, I wouldn't do it.
Okay, how important is it to become a certified translator, and is it difficult? What is the process of becoming a certified translator?
Okay, you don't really need to be certified in order to be a translator, all right? There are good translators outside who are not certified or who don't even have a degree because it didn't exist at the time, and they became translators by other means. So you do get, most of the work I get is non-certified translations, all right? Because it's a big volume. How do you become certified translator? In Spain, you have to take an exam or a series of exams of the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It hasn't been
offered
in the past years because there are a lot of translators nowadays for certain languages like English or French, but it's something that it's ongoing. Every year you get exams of the languages which are more needed. All right, it's a difficult exam. So in order to pass those exams, what a translator needs to do is translate, 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 and translate. So you need to get lots of experience. It's not like if you do a civil servant exam, If you want to become, I don't know, a notary, where what you have to do is study, 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 study. No, here you have to practice a lot in order to become really, really good at it.
Okay, so Luisa, you've told us a lot of information. You've given us a lot of you've given us a lot of advice about what these future translators can do. Is there any bit of key advice that you'd like to end with?
Yeah, there are two things I would like to say. The first one is that they should be aware of computer-assisted translation tools, okay, which are programs like Trados, for instance, which help you do the translation, right? So what they do is that you translate assisted by a program that reminds you what you wrote 3 sentences before that was very similar to what you are translating now. So that helps you keep consistency in the text, all right?
And that one is called what?
This one is called Trados, but it's Trados, Deja Vu. There are several. Okay. There are several programs.
Are these free, or do you have to pay for them?
There's one that's free, but most of them you have to pay for them, all right? On the other part, which I think is very important in all aspects of our work, is becoming members of an association. Being part of an association is not going to give you work right away, but it's going to help the people to know you, because colleagues, we give work to other colleagues. So if you are very good at, let's say, legal translation, and you participate in the association, people are going to see how you write, because we have lists, translation lists, where you send a message and it reaches to lots of people. So you are writing there, and people are going to see how you write, what are your knowledge of the field. Whenever they need a translator of a legal field, because their client has asked them, and they don't do legal, they're going to say, oh, this colleague that I have seen how much this person knows about the legal field, I'm going to contact this person. Obviously, this takes time. It also helps you to make friends, all right? Friends who are going to give you a hand when you're in trouble. That's how I met this wonderful lady, who's called Margaret, who saved me from that project where I had this problem with the translator that I told you about, all right? Mm-hmm. I got her thanks to becoming members of the association, getting to know each other and becoming friends. So, and it's very important. And also because it gives you also some social life. You go to congresses, you go to meet people, and it makes your everyday life a little bit more happy, as to say in a word, because don't forget that you're working from a computer and you're alone all the time. So there are local associations, national associations, international associations. So for the local ones, when they just go for beer, so you go, you meet people from your city, you know, the national or internationals, you go to congresses away. It gives you also the chance to go abroad or to visit other cities in your country. And it gives a little bit of fun to this lonesome career.
So is this a career that you see yourself being involved in for years to come?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever change. I like the way it goes, and it is very difficult to start. And something that is very, very important for students is not to get frustrated, because you send CVs and CVs and CVs, and you see that they get nowhere. And it's like, oh my God, I'm not getting a job from anywhere. And suddenly one day, plum, somebody calls and says, oh my God, I've got a chance here. And you say, okay, it works. And then, you know, you get like word of mouth that people say, oh, this person did this for me. And little by little, you get there. So it's hard, but you actually can get there.
All right, Luisa, thank you so much for all this information.
Oh, thanks to you.
And I hope that it encourages all the other future translators to keep going and to do their best about getting the work and being happy. Thank you.
Thanks to you.